Exploring the boundary between pop culture and orthodoxy, welcome to Synchretise Me. One day, the long-fought battle between humanity and the forces of greed and division will end, and on that day, finally free, we will throw a mother party. Ancient proverb, probably. This is the beginning of the music video for the song Ooh La La by Run the Jewels. I was transfixed by this music video, not just because I like Run the Jewels, but because it has connections to the ideals of heaven. Heaven is a tricky concept. It is an ideal where the imagery changes depending on the era, culture, and language of those telling the story. An experienced missionary and mentor of mine told me that the heavenly imagery containing Western opulence does not translate beyond Western people. You cannot translate that image of heaven to a hunter-gatherer society. It is impossible. I do not know when Jesus' "I am going to prepare a place for you" became mansions and a city, but it did. Perhaps some of it is influenced by the Jewish apocalyptic literature and the messianic importance of Jerusalem and the line of King David. Though maybe it is just that historically most of the world's population live in cities. Let's narrow the concepts a little further. Heaven is the carrot and hell is the stick. If the carrot is beyond the conception of the culture, then it will not work effectively on the population. Likewise, if the stick is too much or not enough, it will also be ineffective. The dominant heavenly imagery for Christianity and Western culture reached its height in the work of Dante. For this we can thank the Jesuits, who by the 1800s considered Dante's Divine Comedy as a quasi-biblical text, non-canonical of course. The heavenly construction has since been simplified from 7 levels of heaven and hell to just heaven and hell. Even now, the imagery of heaven shifts over time. Maybe you've seen Homer Simpson on a cloud bed, or Jimi Hendrix and Ben Franklin playing air hockey. Perhaps you're old enough to have watched a Bugs Bunny cartoon, or maybe Kronk from The Emperor's New Groove. Imagery of heaven can change and fit the culture. Recent Central American variations have hit our screens. The Book of Life and Coco show a very different conception of heaven and hell. The visuals are striking. If you have never seen them before, you will probably not understand, because this is not from your culture, language, or era. Run the Jewels are LP and Killer Mike. They released their 4th studio album, RTJ4, in March 2020. LP describes RTJ4 as an armed robbery with a moment of self-discovery. They pull no punches. As they say in the opening line of Yankee and the Brave, we don't mean no harm, but we surely mean the disrespect. RTJ4 is not far from the usual Run the Jewels formula. Beats that break you, with lyrics that at times read from the cynical translation of the American Socialist Playbook. Yet in this album is a view of the Christian gospel that is far from radical. Run the Jewels ask you to rethink which gospel you do follow. Please consider the lyrics of Walking in the Snow. Never forget that in the story of Jesus, the hero was killed by the state. And in the earlier line, pseudo-Christians, y'all indifferent, kids in prisons, and a sin. If one scrap of what Jesus taught connected, you'd feel different. Where were we? Yeah, that's right. Heaven. Heaven is a very different place depending on your culture. If you live in a desert, you're not going to see the same imagery as someone who lives on a Pacific island. Themes and ideas, though, well, they can be similar. The imagery of the year of the Lord's favour, Isaiah 61, is the source of many of these images. Good news to the poor, sight to the blind, binding up the brokenhearted, setting the captives free, release from the darkness, the day of vengeance of our God. These images are open forms that can fit into spaces for each era, language, and culture. This is where the video for Ooh La La fits in, or should I say, how the imagery of Isaiah 61 fits into Run the Jewels' moment of self-discovery during an armed robbery. Producers Brian and Vanessa Beletic worked with LP and Mike curating a vision which is both apocalyptic and messianic. Don't take my opinion, here are their words. We imagined the world on a day that the age-old struggle of class was finally over, a day that humanity, empathy, and community were victorious over the forces that would separate us based on arbitrary systems created by man. This video is a fantasy of waking up on a day that there is no monetary system, No dividing line, no false construct to tell our fellow man that they are less or more than anyone else. Not that people are without, but that the whole meaning of money has vanished, that we have somehow solved our self-created caste system and can now start fresh with love, hope and celebration. It's a dream of humanity's V-Day, and the party we know would pop off. The imagery is one of jubilee. People are in celebration mode. Money is strewn about, rolling around like tumbleweeds. Those imprisoned are out dancing in the street. Everyone is dancing. It's the block party to end all block parties. In the middle of it is Killer Mike and LP drinking moe and burning the piles of paper that were once important money. This is a carrot, especially for those who live in the city, in a world where money rules and where people are jailed for the colour of their skin. It does not work for those who live in a different setting, for those who exist in a gated community, for those to whom the current status quo has done nothing but help and enable you. Is this a gangster's paradise? No, this is larger than guns, ladies and bling. This is the imagery of people who know the struggle. The difference being is that they're now able to give an approximation of what something else could look like, certainly what it should feel like. Isaiah 61 is translated here in the language of the American urban city, a place where those broken are put back together, those under oppression are free, good news for the poor, where the captives are set free. Hey look, at that point, celebration is required. Along with a bottle of moe, please. Thank you very much for that. This was my first Synchretise Me. This is the fourth video in this series. I don't know how many more there are going to be. Please like, share, comment, subscribe. If you've got an idea for an apology now, or a swear or prayer, or even a Synchretise Me, or even if you're interested in the issue that Superman is not Jesus, please comment and add your opinions. Thank you very much, and God bless.